Do you know what really sucks? Is sitting down to edit your project and realizing that you have gaps in your coverage or shots missing. You need to have a really good, specific, and detailed shot list. Head over to filmmakersecrets.com/shot list, SHOTLIST, to get a killer shot list template along with some training where I show you step by step exactly how to use it.
That's just not filmmaking. It's like you have to adapt and you have to keep going and throughout the whole entire process. And again, I think that's a beautiful thing about it.
Filmmakers have the power to evoke emotion, inspire thought, and drive universal change in this world. So how does a filmmaker thrive in an environment that is almost intentionally designed to bring you down? That is the question, and this podcast reveals the answer. What's happening, filmmakers? It's George VK. Welcome to Filmmaker Secrets podcast, episode number 9, 10, 11? I can't remember. But I am so excited to introduce an amazing filmmaker, Billy Nicholson, who specializes in Steadicam operation. He is smooth as can be. So Billy, go ahead and say what's up to our filmmakers and reveal the one filmmaker secret that you have been keeping from us.
Keeping from you guys. How's everybody doing? Thanks for having me, George. This is an amazing venue and podcast. I've listened to every episode. It's great.
Appreciate it.
I guess the number one secret that they don't reveal to you in film school and when you get up to be an adult in the real world is you don't need LA. And what I mean by that is, especially in light of COVID, there are so many different venues and tools and I guess things like podcasts that can get your voice out. There's so many different kinds of ways to show your art that if you don't want to go down the route of LA or Georgia or New Mexico or whatever, you can kind of in this day in life pick your own path and go at it 110%. So I don't know if that's much of a secret or whatever, but that's just kind of been my experience for the past 10 years.
I think considering with how many people say that they make the excuse and tell the stories to themselves that they're not in the place where they can actually practice filmmaking, or there is not, the industry is not as saturated as they'd like to be. So they make the excuse, I can't make movies because I live in Kansas or whatever,
Yes.
It's important, I think, to realize that you can make things happen for yourself. Obviously, if the industry is really saturated and there's work happening everywhere, such as LA, New York, Georgia, New Mexico, yes, certain things will come your way. However, it's important to note that that should never be an excuse or a story that you tell yourself. So, Billy, I would love for you to take us back, way, way back to the one little moment that you had that gave you this aha that you were absolutely convinced that you were meant to be a filmmaker, to tell stories, to serve an audience. Describe that one moment for me.
For me, I don't think it was actually one moment. It was kind of like a compound of a couple things over, a variety of years. But growing up, I liked film, but I never knew that was what I wanted to do. I actually had the jackass phase with my buddy where we would just go out with my mom's Handycam and do stupid stuff and film it and do scenes and stuff like that. So I always kind of did film. But I actually started off my college life as a mechanical engineer, got all the way up to thermodynamic physics and calculus 3 and doing all that stuff. But I took film as a minor and just fell in love with it and then switched my course. But it was, I guess the catalyst would have been one of the nights I was at my brother-in-law's 3D animation studio class. It was late night. I was just hanging out with him while he was finishing up something, and they were playing Christopher Nolan's Memento in the background on the projector. And if you guys haven't seen that film, if you know Christopher Nolan, he likes playing with timelines in his films. And Memento is one of his firsts where it's about a guy who lost his short-term memory and he's trying to piece together, no spoilers, but he's trying to piece together his own life. And he does it through a series of tattoos that he self-tattoos on himself. And so the movie is told backwards and forwards and up and down, and it's all over the place. And watching it in the background at my brother-in-law's 3D class, I didn't know what the heck was going on. but it was intriguing enough and it was shot beautifully that I watched it again and again and again. And I guess that was the first movie that kind of pushed me into this film career.
Beautiful. Spoilers are encouraged, especially, considering the fact that if you haven't seen Memento yet, then you can't really call yourself a filmmaker. It's a beautiful example of breaking all the rules of story structure. We're taught about the 3-act story structure that is so outdated nowadays. The structure of stories played around and experimented with so much, and that's what makes a really compelling story, in my opinion. So I love that you bring up that example. Awesome. So along this journey, as you're going and learning filmmaking, you're getting really deep into it and you start geeking out on all the aspects of filmmaking. How did you end up in the world of Steadicam operation?
It's so funny because a lot of people ask me that question and I actually don't know because our film school didn't have a Steadicam. I think there was a glide cam that was for rental or something like that. But for some reason I had a Frankenstein glide cam sled with like a Vari-Zoom vest and it was super janky, but I was the only one in our class that did that. And I don't know how I found it or how I pieced it together. It was just what I did in college. I was like the Steadicam guy. And ever since then, I've just fell in love with it because I've always been active and in sports and being active and sweating your balls off and putting film with that. It just falls hand in hand with me because I'm high energy on set and I just love to run around with the rig and follow actors and just be in the scene, Well,
I tell you what, there should be more Billies on set because every time that I worked on a project with you or you asked me to come on, it's that energy is contagious. And I think it just helps to lift up the morale of the whole set and everybody feels uplifted through it. Talk to me about some of the biggest roadblocks that you've encountered along your journey of producing films, being a Steadicam operator on sets, and just the overall process that you go through in filmmaking and how did you overcome those roadblocks?
So because I'm a camera operator, I fall more into the category of, I guess my biggest roadblock is finding gigs and finding jobs. However, I do have 3 feature films under my belt, through Jason Ungate, another one of our fellow, college mates. And those were all done with like no budget. So I guess, those were huge learning experiences doing 3 feature films with, only on the weekends, unlike Dan Cummings' video where they were able to block we were doing it on weekends for all of year long, during summers and stuff like that. So it was a huge learning curve on how to make a film with no money, with, free locations, actors that are like volunteering their time. And the number one lesson I guess I could give throughout all that process, and every single movie was the same, was, I'm a very anal intensive person. So I do like you mentioned in one of your podcasts, shot lists are very key to keep people on schedule and to know what you need and to capture every single angle and so you're not missing anything in the cutting room floor. But films are still films and productions are still productions and everything is in flux. The minute you get on set, everything just goes out the door. So I guess the number one hurdle and lesson throughout all the years of my experience is just go with the flow on set. You have a game plan but it's going to get stumped on. You're going to run out of time. You're going to have to cut shots. You're going to have to pick up shots, all this stuff. And that's the beautiful thing about filmmaking is it's a continuous process, with everyone on set and collaboration and all that. And it's a beautiful thing if you don't bottleneck yourself into, I have to do this way.
It's you're adapting every minute almost of your production. Something goes wrong and you have to figure out how to find the solution to be able to keep the morale high, number one, but also stay more or less on schedule, number two.
Yeah. I've been on numerous of sets where you have people that are just go with the flow and make it happen. And you have to make it work because time is money and you're there either 1 day or 2 days or whatever. And then I've been on other sets where people just break down and they don't know how to fix it. And it's like, that's obviously the productions that don't make it because that's just not filmmaking. It's like you have to adapt and you have to keep going and throughout the whole entire process. And again, I think that's a beautiful thing about it.
It is.
We're not working in cubicles.
I like to ask this of a lot of the people the filmmakers I interview. Whenever I think of a film, it's obviously a visual medium, and then you add motion to it. What's the third ingredient that you think needs to be implemented in order for a film to truly be a film and not just a video?
I've always thought this, but I'm actually going to cheat off of some of your other podcasts. But for me, it's number one, character and story. To me, even if you're doing a commercial or something like that, there's no real reason to put what you're doing out there unless there's a meaning behind it, whether that's interesting character or an interesting storyline. And because we, as filmmakers, we do this, we put up with all this work, all these late night hours of rendering and all that stuff because we have a story to tell. And unless you have a character that you can relate to or a storyline that has arcs and falls and stuff like that, then kind of really what is the point? So yeah, I love being involved in story that has great character. I love being involved in a story that makes you think or makes you question or makes you change what you're doing. So I think that is, for me, that's the number one ingredient, not just the third, but.
Number one, it's because filmmakers have the power to inspire thought, drive universal change, but also they have this innate sense of how to make an audience feel, right? That's what really drives the attention of the viewer. Once you can make the viewer feel something, they become invested in your story and they'll most likely finish watching your film, which we all want.
Yes, I would actually say, I'll go on record for myself and say that The Last of Us, it's a video game. If you haven't heard of it, The Last of Us Part 1 and 2 are, in my opinion, top 3 storylines that I have either played, watched, or read in all my life. And the reason why is kind of what you were just saying there is it's a post-apocalyptic zombie storyline. But there's a lot more to it. But the thing that I love about it is it's not very Hollywoodized. It's nothing works out in anybody's favor. Everything is screwed up. It's nothing. There's no pretty roses at the end of the hill or something like that. And it's a story that, because you're playing it because it's a video game, it makes you feel, and it makes you feel all the emotions, not just happy emotions, but it makes you pissed off and it makes you angry that you're making this character do this thing. And it just makes you feel everything. And that's why I love that storyline so much. And that's the filmmaker's process, is making you feel that stuff. You
said Hollywoodized?
Yes. Hollywoodized. And the reason why I said that is,
please.
The reason why I said that is because there's plenty of horror or zombie or apocalyptic storylines that in the end, the characters come together or there's a happy ending or whatever, you know what I mean? Like there's a pretty sun at the end of the rainbow type of, you know what I mean? But in Last of Us Part 1 and 2, nobody wins. Nobody wins. It's gloom. It just keeps driving the story at you and it doesn't let up. And I love that because it's a zombie story. So there isn't a happy ending. Nobody wins. And that's what in my opinion, that's not Hollywoodized, because there aren't these wonderful characters that win at the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Breaking the rules. That makes me think about, the difference between the character's journey of achievement versus the journey of transformation. Because I'm sure, in order to be really invested in the story, there needs to be some sort of change that happens with the character, whether or not they actually achieve the thing that they wanted. So the character's wants are linked to their achievement, but the character's needs, what they actually need, is linked to that transformation. And so the moral of the story and the takeaway is the change that the character goes through, which is that journey of transformation. So I love that you bring up that example. This is just so much gold. Are you guys hearing this? Billy Nicholson's just dropping value bomb after value bomb. Okay, let's move on. We talked about the past. We talked a little bit about the filmmaking process and some of the roadblocks you had. Without touching too much on COVID, what are some of the more recent projects? Like, what's happening in your brain as you're seeing the shift in the industry? What is it that you are working on, or what is it that you want to work on?
So currently, because of COVID, so the company I work for, we are still doing productions and stuff like that. It's obviously like everyone else's story. It's been very minimal and stuff, but we're still going. I work for an ad agency for action sports, so I'm their staff editor and shooter, and so we're still doing stuff. And that's what I love to do. I love to be on set. I love being behind camera, whether that's Steadicam or camera in general, whatever kind of operating it is. But currently here, I'm in Washington getting to know the community and the film world up here, also up into Vancouver, Canada. And COVID obviously put a stop to that. So it's kind of like I just got here this year in a sense. I've been here for 3 years, but because of COVID, it kind of reverted everything. So now I'm kind of starting back at zero, getting to know the people in the community up here because there hasn't been any schmoozers. There hasn't been any get-togethers. So it is a process. But I have worked on a couple feature films since I've been here. One is called Bigfoot Killed My Wife. So it's a comedy about what it actually sounds like. Did some Steadicam operating and camera operating on that. So it kind of feels like I'm out of college again, like I said, because I'm new to this community up here. So I'm starting to like get my feet dipped into this pond and figure who people are up here. But I guess because I've been working for an ad agency for the past 9-ish years, something that I want to look forward to in the future that I'm trying to get back into is I want to be on more narrative productions, whether that be a commercial narrative, feature, short, whatever it is. Because again, I love story. I love characters and I love the high and lows of the arcs and all that stuff. And ad agencies are fun. We get to do fun things. Like we are doing this huge production with Chevy Automotive right now. So it's Camaros and Corvettes and planes and helicopter to helicopter shots and stuff like that. And it's fun, but there's no story to it. You know what I mean? So I get to have fun and play with all these camera gear and all that. But then I want to get back to the whole narrative on some projects and stuff like that, whether that be paid productions or just passion projects or whatever. So that's kind of on my near future to do here.
Got it. Was there a moment in your career, as you know, in the sort of commercial world, that you urged the producers and the people that you're working for to infuse story into these productions, or are they kind of tied to the client side of things where they're controlling, you know, what the actual content and the story is?
Yeah, well, the ad agency world, as a lot of people know in the film world, that there are hierarchies, right? There are hierarchies on set and there's hierarchies and there's a lot of those in the ad agency world. So basically a client will come to a creative agency. So they have their idea, the creative will come up with the story, and then it just trickles down. And because I am just the staff editor and shooter, I really don't have a say in all of that pre-production side of it. So lack of better words, I'm just a monkey pushing buttons. And so that's another reason why my near future plans are to try to get back into passion projects and narrative shorts or features or whatever's in front of me. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of story and script and collaborative process on my end when it comes to working for these companies, unfortunately.
Why do you think that you have this pull to tell stories versus just creating videos that are flashy and look beautiful?
Oh, well, like I mentioned just a little bit ago, like just going back to like Memento and the kind of story and structure of that. And then what we were talking about with character, what is the point of doing something that's flashy and beautiful if there's no point behind it, I guess you could say. Like the Last of Us example I give you is because even though it's dark and gloom and there's no happy ending, you still feel something, whether that's anger or disappointment or whatever. And then it's a storyline that you continue to talk about for years and ages. Whereas these throwaway commercials are just, they're up for 30 days or whatever the whole bid process is, and then they're gone and forgotten. And I like to be a part of something that is remembered and that you can talk about. And it's like the whole Seven scenario with what's in the box, or Pulp Fiction, what's in the briefcase. Like, we don't know, but it's something that's talked about for ages and decades. And it's like, it's continued like on Reddit to be argued about, stuff like that. And that's what pulls me to stories.
I'm thinking about the spinning pin at the end of Inception. Did it fall down or did it actually stay up?
And it's like that could be interpreted and argued about for years and decades to come, you know?
And you leave a legacy with your storytelling by creating really intriguing moments within your films that can leave a lasting impact on filmmakers and your audience and other viewers. And I think that that's a really cool point. That's not something that I have thought about before in terms of like infusing those elements into your story. And I think that's a really great golden nugget. I would love to hear a little bit about you have so many good nuggets about storytelling. How do you infuse that into your Steadicam operation? Because obviously if you're working with a director of photography, then they have a certain vision and, they give you direction, but what kind of things can you bring to the table as a Steadicam operator?
As a Steadicam operator, I always envision myself as a character within the scene. So because Steadicam follows characters, or it leads characters into a scene, or it pulls characters out, like it's always in movement. I when I'm in the rig and I'm operating, I just imagine that I'm another character in the pages. And it helps you to really motivate where the lead actor or the supporting actor's headroom is, or when the camera transitions, or when you cross frame and stuff like that. It really helps to, in your head as you're operating, you're doing the subtext. You know what I mean? Like you're operating as another character. I don't know how else to dive into this, but yeah.
Are there moments that you feel like the Steadicam is called upon for no reason and they're just wanting a Steadicam shot?
Yeah, that happens a lot. And on lower budget productions, they'll bring on a Steadicam operator. And then since the camera's already rigged on the rig, and they don't have time for setup, it just stays on the rig. And then you start doing over the shoulder shots. So there are a lot of moments where, and to be honest, on big budgets too, it's just, because time starts getting so crunched, it's on the rig. They just ask you to snag the shot real quick, which is fine. I mean, that's part of the process and stuff like that. But obviously at that point, you're just sticks standing there. You know what I mean?
What's your philosophy in terms of motivation for camera movement? When is it necessary and when is it not?
It's necessary when the subtext of the script and characters motivate it.
Beautiful. That's so simply put, but it's absolutely on the dot. Go ahead.
Yeah, like you mentioned in one of your podcasts about what is it? Equipment trapping? Is that what you call it?
Tool trapping.
And I actually wanted to talk about that a little bit.
I love how prolific you are. You've listened to every episode so far?
Yeah.
I love you.
Well, I love putting it up, man. That's great. I love these episodes. But yeah, like that's a big thing. And that I don't know a lot of people understand that, like, and that's the hardest thing about Steadicam nowadays, is because they came out with gimbals. People just think gimbals now. They forgot about Steadicam, or people just think of Steadicam and not gimbals. And I'm a firm believer in there's a right tool for the right part of the story. You know what I mean? Like a jib can tell a different kind of story than a Steadicam can, and a dolly can tell a different story than a gimbal can. You know what I mean? Like if there's a tool for the story, and we shouldn't get trapped into, well, we have this thing rented for 2 days, we have to use it for every shot, or this needs to be a gimbal piece or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's a hard trap that a lot of people do fall into. So I don't know if that answered your question or not, but yeah.
Awesome. I want you to put on your director hat, because you've directed a few short films and a feature, I believe.
2 features. Well, 3 features technically with Jason. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So when you're approaching pre-production, you pick up a script. It's probably somebody else's work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm not a very good writer.
How do you then launch into pre-production? What is the number one thing you think about when you're going into pre-production?
Well, my directing background has always been with Jason. So I kind of consider us kind of like the Wachowski brothers or the Russo brothers, you know what I mean? Where it's like Jason is the writer, and he's a phenomenal writer. And he's really good at character. And I am the technical side. Like I am more of a DP than a director. But then I'm more of a camera operator than a DP because there's so many better DPs out there. So I approach the script in a visual standpoint, whereas he approaches the script in a very character standpoint. And going back to what I was talking about earlier, I still approach it in a character sense because obviously the characters are motivating camera and all that. But it's just like when I start breaking down a script, it's just camera angles are all up here and it's all being motivated by what's going on in the subtext and stuff. So that's my number one concern when it comes to breaking down in pre-production is where's the camera going?
I like to think of a concept of working the scene. I learned this from a photographer, actually, Scott Kelby. And he says, when you're working a scene, the very first place that you put your tripod is absolutely the worst place. Yep. So in order to work the scene, go ahead and make that mistake of placing the tripod, but then go in and try to work the scene from all kinds of different angles. What's your process? I'm curious about finding those angles once you actually get on set.
So I used to, the first film I got in the trap of, I shot listed everything, like every single angle, the wide, the over the shoulders, like I just shot listed it all. And then on set, I had to get it all. Like I wasn't, it was a very good lesson in being in flux. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to get it all, or like you just said, where you put it is not going to be the best spot for it. And you have to learn how to then adjust. So that was the first trap that I fell into in the first feature. And then the second and the third was, okay, I need a wide, I need these over the shoulders. And then I would think of the creative shots that would help motivate, like the switching behind heads and stuff like that. But instead of like going in and very minutely piecing out those shots, I basically just did bullet points. Like I need to get the shot, I need to get this shot, I need to get this shot. And this is how I want to see it. But then when you're on set, you have to obviously look at the set and then come up with the shot in your head in a sense. You know what I mean? So I'm doing it a little bit before and I'm doing it on set as well. So it's
constantly
process.
Evolving, right? I mean, you can't just, the reason you have a shot list on set is to have a framework and this guide, but it's okay to then reorder, change things, because as you get on set, there will be different circumstances and scenarios that mold your shot list from that point forward. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Okay. I have one last question for you, Billy, even though I can talk to you for hours about this stuff. It's fascinating. And I missed chatting with you and picking your brain. What is your desert island movie? So if you could only watch one movie for the rest of your life, what would it be?
I actually cheated because, again, I listened to all the other, and I thought about it for a long time. I think I'm going to default on Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump,
another Tom Hanks movie. I love it.
Yeah, it's one of my childhood favorites with my buddy. Like we can quote that thing from the start to finish. Not only is it an entertaining movie, it's just a very, very well put together movie through and through. Like just what they thought of how every single, like not every single, but there are a lot of big points in history that they just put Forrest Gump into. And that's just what's so hilariously amazing about the film. That there are some things that I didn't even know until I took a history class in college, like the Watergate scandal. It's a simple, like small little scene in Forrest Gump that I never understood what it's when he's in the hotel and there's people across the way with flashlights or whatever. And like, I never knew what that was about until I took this history class in college. And it's just like everything from start to finish of that movie is just entertaining, well shot, well acted. I could watch that.
Talk about leaving a legacy with a Bubba Gump franchise popping up everywhere.
Yep, exactly.
What a way to spin off of a movie is to create a restaurant chain. Amazing. Okay, Billy, where can our filmmakers go to find out more about you?
My Steadicam website is Billy N as in Nancy at steadicam.com. And if anybody doesn't know, Steadicam is with an I and not a Y. So that's my Steadicam website. And then the company that I work for is garagefilms.tv. And on the landing page, there's a reel that we've put up recently that's I'm pretty proud of because I edited it together without any direction from the creative director. It was kind of just put together a reel. And so I'm pretty proud of it because it's actually got some voiceover and some story to it. So it shows off a lot of what we've done in the last decade, which is great.
Beautiful. So there you have it, filmmakers. Billy Nicholson, Steadicam operator extraordinaire. Go check out all his work. I'll put all the links in the show notes. Make sure to catch up on the rest of the Filmmaker Secrets podcast, just like Billy did. And Billy, I want to thank you so much for being on Filmmaker Secrets podcast.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me. And then again, thanks for putting this all together and just connecting the community, man. I appreciate it.
Anything I can do virtually and otherwise. All right, filmmakers, I'll catch you on the next one. Thank you so much for listening. If you like that, then you are going to love my Cine Racing Challenge. This is a 7-day filmmaking competition where your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to write, shoot, and edit a short 60-second film in just 7 days for your one chance to win with over $10,000 in prizes. So head over to cineracing.com. That's cineracing.com to get registered. Spots are filling up fast and the timer is ticking before the next Cine Racing Challenge launches. So be sure to head over to cineracing.com right now to get registered. I'll see you over there.